Hey campers, this is NPS Ranger News. Our program features the amazing work of National Park Service Rangers, protecting people in parks across the country through law enforcement, search and rescue, emergency medicine, firefighting, and other emergency services. I'm Greg Jackson, your host. NPS Ranger News updates news stories every day as they happen, both on Facebook and Twitter. On Facebook, find us at /NPS Ranger News. On Twitter, we're at NPS_Ranger. With me today is Chris Figge. Chris, we spoke not long ago. Chris is the team leader of the National Park Service Park Ranger Honor Guard. Chris, thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
Well, we are here to talk about the Honor Guard, which is a team of park rangers that was formed way back in 2003. Chris, why was the team formed?
You know, back years ago, it doesn't seem like that long ago, but unfortunately when a ranger dies in the line of duty, the National Park Service relied on other agencies to provide the full honors funerals, which is a pivotal thing for closure for the families of these fallen officers. It varied from U.S. Park Police had done it, and then in the case of Chris Egley, U.S. Border Patrol provided a full honors funeral. And at that funeral in 2002, Chris's mom, Bonnie, who's an amazing person, she simply asked, she said, "Why aren't Rangers carrying my son?" Well, it was a hard question that nobody really had a good, solid answer to. Well, Paul Henry, for those of you who know him, who's a can-do kind of guy, he stepped up and said, "Yeah, I'm going to fix this." And a national announcement went out, and we were formed.
So that was 2003. Paul, at that time, was the superintendent of the National Park Service Law Enforcement Training Center. And just for full disclosure, clarity, and whatever, not too many years later, well, the supervision of the Honor Guard went from Paul Henry to Don Usher, and then eventually to me. So that's how I know Chris. So Chris, you were the first team leader. It was Dana Condren.
Yes, Dana Condren from Assateague Island started out using his former military experience. He'd probably get mad if I said the military. Dana was a Marine, and the assistant team leader was Jamie Monroe, who was actually on the Marine Corps Honor Guard. And those guys were pivotal in getting us started and going. After our initial training, we met down at FLETC and had a stack of assorted SOP manuals from other Honor Guard teams. Started trying to figure things out, and from there we went up to Fort Myers, home of the 3rd Infantry Regiment, otherwise known as the Old Guard, and they provided some training to us, and we started getting a clue. And then in the fall of 2003, we went up to Fort Ripley, Minnesota, to an actual Honor Guard camp hosted by the Minnesota Law Enforcement Memorial Association. And from there, we really got our foundation and got going real good.
Oh, good. Yeah, I remember hearing about some of the things before I got involved, and then there were some events, and there was a little bit of controversy at the beginning of the creation of the Law Enforcement Ranger Honor Guard, of who should be on it and where people should go. But as the team got out and made themselves visible, people started saying, "Well, gee, these folks look good."
Like everything that's new, we had some things in the beginning. We were fortunate. We had a solid group of 10. We had a group of 10 people on the initial team that we really wanted to do it right. I was privileged to be on the part of the original team. there's only two of us left now from the original team, myself and assistant team leader Jim Barnes. But yeah, we did a lot of things right, and a key of being a member of the Honor Guard is to you got to be a good team player. We select our members. We're all field rangers. There's actually a policy that once you reach a GS-12 level, you have to step off the team. We're all working people who work in the field every day, so we understand what the job is and the dedication. We've grown now to 18 members on the team, and we just train hard. We have the drive, dedication, and determination to train to a perfect level. Anything less than perfection is not honoring those Rangers who we're there for.
All right, yeah, I remember going through some of the rules about who could be on the team and not. And part of the thought was the people at the higher grade level, supervisors and others. One, limited availability was a key driver for that, and two is just the team was meant to reflect the Ranger population in general, and so that's why that went on. How often, speaking of availability, how often do people have to go as the team train together?
We train twice a year. For years and years and years, we trained at Fletzy. We went through a variety of training venues there. We used to simply just meet it in Georgia and train at a funeral home off center, and then we grew into training on center, and then through a variety of changes at Fletzy, it just started becoming unfeasible. So it never made sense to me. The Honor Guard, we're spread out across the country. We're as far west as Golden Gate and as far east as Manassas and Cape Hatteras. So it never made sense for me to drag everybody from the West Coast all the way down to southeast Georgia. So I reached out. I found Jefferson Barracks National Cemetery in St. Louis. And we've been training there for about the last 2 years for a central location. It's very feasible for us, and that's been working out well. We train usually about the first week in April and the last week in September. We used to get into October, but then these government shutdowns started causing us some problems, so we try to keep it up into September.
Sure. Yeah, that was, I guess, part of the issue with the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Georgia is it's a little out of the way. St. Louis, middle of the country, everybody's fairly equidistant from there at the worst, and a big airport there, so the airfare is probably cheaper, which may offset some of the housing costs, which maybe, I don't know, where you guys, hotel.
We actually stay down in Jefferson County, and we're outside the St. Louis per diem rate. It is pretty comparable, probably less expensive than going all the way down to Fletzy. So far it's been working out good. Jefferson Barracks, and the problem with Fletzy, for everybody that's been there, it's an ever-changing monster. And then we used to train at the chapel. Well, the chapel's no longer the chapel, it's now an office building. So that changed a lot of things. Works out great for us going on to Jefferson Barracks. They've got a giant indoor drill hall. We can do about completely everything in a climate-controlled environment, which is huge. And then on our last day, on Thursday, we actually go into the National Cemetery and do full mock funerals in the cemetery. We're fortunate enough, we're completely self-supportive. We've got an enclosed trailer. We own our own casket. We've got everything on board, so we don't have to rely upon anybody to train, or even when we go on details, we're completely self-supportive. When people request us, which we'll get into requests later, they typically ask what we need, and I tell them Just tell me what time and where to be, and the rest of it's on us.
Well, is on the request side of things, what type of events does the Honor Guard serve these days?
Our primary mission, our reason for existence, is line of duty deaths, line of duty full honors funerals. I tell the team, the highest honor a law enforcement officer could receive in the United States is a full honors funeral, and it's our job to provide it. Beyond that, we will do anything that requires a professional, dignified appearance. When we're on scene, we're there representing the director. We don't go to everything. We turn some events down. It just doesn't fit within the mission of the Honor Guard. We went to the 70th anniversary of Pearl Harbor, dedicated the new visitor center there. We dedicated Flight 93. We were actually on stage with, I believe it was 3 presidents at the time, Bush, Clinton, and Obama. Any event that requires that type of a representation.
Over the years, things have evolved within the National Park Service, where now there have been poor people just needed folks to carry a flag around, and teams, some parks, and I think some regions have put together various color guards to do that, and they've called in the past and gotten some advice and direction as far as protocols for that, and I know the team has helped people out with that, and then. Also, there's a firefighter honor guard now in the National Park Service, isn't there?
Yes. Time runs together. Several years ago, quite a while ago now, we helped start the fire division. They have their own honor guard. Other parks, I know Yosemite, for one, has their own color guard, and I've actually been privileged to help some of our sister agencies out, like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Bureau of Land Management, start their own honor guard teams as well.
Once you've seen it, it's something pretty spectacular and pretty important, quite important, exactly to the families involved and to basically coworkers and all involved. So. You want to talk about how folks can request an honor guard activation, what the chain of command is or the protocols?
This seems to provide some confusion. The fastest, quickest way to get us moving, one, you can call or email me direct, but I do have a supervisor, and that's currently is John Leonard. He's the Deputy Chief of Operations at WASO. He's also currently in an acting role as National Chief Ranger. Either call him or me is your fastest way, or you can get a hold of any Honor Guard team member. But then we've got to run it up the chain of command because we've got to figure some things like funding sources and stuff like that out. So the higher you can go, the better. Get a hold of them, and then we'll get the nod on yes, go, yes, this fits within the Honor Guard mission. Here's your account number. Depending on the event, sometimes we will have an account number that we can provide, or other times the park has to support the travel expenses associated with the team. It just depends on. There's no rubber stamp for that answer.
And Chris, who are on the team as far as how does one go about becoming a member, and when do vacancies become available?
The short answer is always. You can always apply. I'm always accepting applications. When I have worked through the applications I have on file, I will put an announcement out. I've done a variety of ways, but usually it's through Inside NPS, or I'll send an announcement out to all the regional chief rangers that I'm accepting applications. To join the team, you have to be a commissioned law enforcement officer with the National Park Service. We do carry firearms with the Honor Guard. You have to have been through FLUTC. You have to be a level 1 for the simple reason of FLUTC is about a 9-month commitment that you've got other things you need to be focusing on. So you apply. We will invite you to whenever our next spring or our next training session is, whether it's the spring or the fall. We'll invite you. Right now it's in St. Louis. I selected several people a couple of years ago, and I asked them to report to Fort Myers, and their first training was with the Army Old Guard. At the end of that first week, it's kind of like drinking through a fire hose. We're going to throw everything on you that we do: color movements, firing party, flag fold, casket carry, door guards, casket guards. At the end of that first week, we sit down, meet with you, and, what do you think? What do you need to work on? Here's how this is going. Some people, it just doesn't work out for them. We've had several that at the end of the week had said, hey, you have my respect, but this isn't for me. And it's just that drive and determination and dedication to train to a perfect level. Like I said earlier, perfection is our goal. After a series of training sessions, and we think you will be a good fit for the team, is when you'll be offered your Honor Guard coin, which is our version of the Tomb Sentinel's badge. It's just saying, yes, you are a member of the Park Service Honor Guard. It takes about a year to get somebody completely trained and equipped. Our uniforms are completely custom cut. So it takes a good amount of time to get everybody to the level of, I can call you out, I can send you to Tacoma, Washington to provide a full honors funeral.
And one thing, Chris, from my perspective, in overseeing the team over the few years when I was there, is the great job that the team leadership performs, and others on the team that deal with in a line of duty death, family and friends of the ranger involved. It's always consistent comments of approval and appreciation of the sensitivities involved and the protocols and the respect, and it's always left a good impression, other than just the event and the events involved. Just the way that Dana and you and others over the years have dealt with people, and I assume that eventually it was the plan of secession, and all will continue that way, in that direction, in the long-term future.
Yeah, absolutely. As you know from years of supervision, when you've got good people working for you, it's very easy to look good. All of our team members are rock solid. They all know what the mission is, have the dedication to fulfill our mission. It's been a wonderful journey for me. It's something I've been dedicated to for a long time. Right now, I plan on remaining dedicated to it until they run me off or I retire, whichever happens first. But yeah, it's been fulfilling for me to have a surviving family member hug you and say, thank you for being here. It really means a lot from our standpoint to provide this service.
All right. Well, Chris Figge, team leader for the National Park Service Park Ranger Honor Guard, thanks very much for being with me.
Thanks for having me.
Well, campers, that's all for now. Check back for new shows every few days. Breaking news comes out when it happens on Twitter and Facebook. Thanks for listening. And in case you haven't figured it out, NPS Ranger News isn't affiliated with the government. I'm Greg Jackson for NPS Ranger News. See you on the trail.